for the 14th of December. Passed those tests, didn't we? Donovan and Rudy continue to get better. And what did we stumble upon last Friday that actually has a long-term impact? We're talking about all of it on Locked On Jazz. Bum 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 pow.
You are Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thanks so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. You can subscribe on YouTube right there. Follow on all of your podcast providers. It is free and available for you on all platforms. Thanks very much for stopping by. Special hello to Isaac in Sweden, Keith in Calgary, Riker, Ryan, Brigham in Atlanta, Richard, Jeremy, Charles, all saying hello. Thank you very much. Hello to Lacey as well. I missed yesterday. Apologize. I was not feeling great. I woke up Sunday morning and just felt like hell. And tested negative, thank goodness, with the wrath of and rash of COVID stretching across the NBA. I saw, Chicago's had to cancel 2 games. New York Knicks have had 3-4 players in like the last week. We've had, I saw Brooklyn just had 3 or 4 players going to protocol. So I am not sure what's happening next in the NBA, but I was fortunate I tested negative. I just had a really, really bad head cold. Feel a million times better today. You probably can still hear it a tiny bit. I didn't have my hat on, had my hair in every direction, unshaven. I'd probably look as bad as I felt the other day, but I feel great today. So, all right, let's get to it. The Jazz really have passed an incredible test here. The question was, and we set it up for the month of December, you were playing early on. The first 5 were all against really good defensive teams. Washington slid since the beginning of the month and fell apart defensively. Ironically, that was the team we probably had the least good offensive game, but we had our best defensive game. And, frankly, the 1-point win in Cleveland, which we were ahead by a lot of 15-0 run, we're ahead by a lot more. I think as we're watching Cleveland, they're bona fide. Like, I think Cleveland right now has the 5th best differential in the NBA and has the 4th best record in the Eastern Conference. That team's good. Like, it is going to, I think, if this holds, winning in Cleveland's going to turn out to be a 6th best differential, according to Clean the Glass. They're still behind Brooklyn. Beating Cleveland's going to turn out to be, a really pretty good win. Like, in fact, probably a better win than we realized at the time. So, let's look at it for a second. What we've really just done is offensively exploded. And if you look, it all started after the loss to Miami. And then we played Philadelphia without their guys. And it was as though that got us a rhythm. And then we played Toronto, and Toronto trapped us and forced us to pass the basketball. And we turned it over a ton that night. But I think it got the guys to remember the ball movement that they're supposed to have. I don't really like the statistical number of passes per game as an indicator of whether the offense is working. I mean, in the old days, we used to run 330 passes a game, really, frankly, because of the fact that we had so few offensive players that we decided that we had to have, that we basically, the only way we were going to get an advantage is to throw so many passes that we ended up getting we got an advantage eventually by breaking down the defense. With that said, I think that Toronto game, we threw about 300 passes. And it was a higher number than we had thrown in a little while. And since then, we've had a few more games back up. 300 is about our high of the season. We don't throw much more than 300. Oklahoma City, we threw 300, I think it was. And then I think Portland, we threw 300. We just don't, we're not a high pass team anymore. We play fast. We want to play fast. We want to get out. We want to take early shots. So we don't. But in that Toronto game, they forced us to throw a bunch of passes by trapping. And to me, it was a reminder of the guys of like, all right, this is how we're supposed to play. Then we played a really good Memphis team who's pretty good defensively, better defensively without John Morant, we're now learning. Got kind of robbed at the end of that one. Should have won that game. Had a 119 offensive rating. Had a bad offensive game against Oklahoma City. Really didn't look good. And then had a brutal night against New Orleans. And I don't know why. Like, that's a mystery to me. But since that day, like that day off between playing on actually, I think it was a back-to-back against New Orleans, it's been ridiculous. Here's the offensive performances in the last 7 games. 97th percentile, 99th percentile, 99th percentile, 70th percentile against Cleveland, 93rd percentile, 92nd percentile, 85th percentile. We talk about these numbers a lot. Hopefully you guys are getting used to it. The benchmark we've kind of set is if you do anything over 120 offensively or under 100, it's a really elite level performance. Okay. And we usually do it by quarter on the show. New Orleans was a 132. Portland was a 138. Boston was a 137. Cleveland was a 116. We're classifying that as our mundane offensive performance. I would point out that if we had a 116 every game for the entire year, we'd have the number one offense in the league. Below our average, but it would be the number one offense in the league. Minnesota 127, Philadelphia 127, Washington 122. I'm not sure I can adequately explain what's happening offensively. Some of the numbers are absurd, frankly. I mean, if you take it back to the 16th against Philadelphia and start to look at some of our shooting numbers, it is a little bit hard to believe that it can maintain. And only because we're a historically great shooting team, which might be possible. I mean, we have a brilliant collection of three-point shooters. We have the best rim runners in the league. We got 2 dynamic guards. But our effective field goal percentage in the last 13 games is a 61.4. The second best in the league is 56.5. Effective field goal percentage weighs three-point shooting. So it includes three-point shooting. So in other words, you hit 40% of your threes and 40% of your twos, they're not the same value. So the 40% of the threes gets picked up to being the equivalent of 60% of 2-point shots because that's the same amount of points. And so we're shooting 61.4 effective field goal percentage in the last 13 games. That is a long stretch. If you take it just to the win streak of 7 games, which starts on, I'm looking to see where it starts. Starts on the 27th of November. It gets even more ridiculous because you take out one of our bad games. And now we're really shrinking our sample size to our purposes, but it's 62.7. League average is 53.2, and our next closest is Houston at 58.6. The reason Houston's doing it is because of their shot distribution. Ours is somewhat due to our shot distribution. And someone also will do it in that, our shot distribution is good. Theirs is great. They're 40-40-20, which has been my dream shot distribution for any team in the history of the game, and I didn't know it could actually be done. 40% of your shots at the rim, 40% of your shots as threes, 20% of your shots as mid-range. There's just about nothing you can do to not have 20% of your shots as mid-range shots. Non-restricted area twos. That's what I think is, and I feel like we talked about this last week. I kind of got into this on the Washington game on the broadcast. I hope you've been listening to the radio. I feel like we've had some really neat broadcasts. And we got into this on the Washington broadcast is the 2-point shooting. And what we got into is that the Jazz 2-point shooting is really as incredible. Our 3-point shooting is proficient, and I don't think we're like leading the league in any way, shape, or form with it. But what we're doing with our 2-point shooting, our 3-point shooting is creating the combination of Rudy or Hassan rolling to the rim. 3-point shooters everywhere means that when Donovan or Jordan or Mike go into the lane for 2-point shots, it's virtually like it's basically letting world class and NBA players play one on one. Now we're 23rd in the league in shots at the rim. We're only taking 30% of our shots at the rim. I'd love for us to get to 35% of our shots at the rim. That would be great. If we could, we're taking 20% of our shots as floaters. It's a little like if that number could come down, we can increase the rim a tiny bit. Okay, I'm getting picky with the greatest offense statistically since in the history of the league. But here's what we're doing: we're shooting 71% at the rim. 71% at the rim. League average is 64. We're shooting 46.8 in the floater mid-range zone. Okay, it's still only 0.95 points per shot, but that's not terrible in the half court. We don't take long twos. We're shooting 41% of our non-restricted area twos. We're the second best shooting team in the league at 45.9. The only one better is Brooklyn because of Durant at 46.9. And then we're the third best three-point shooting team while making 37.6 while taking the highest volume of threes of anyone in the league. That's the magic. That's the combination that makes us great offensively. We'll review each of those games that we just played and look at that. I also want to talk about Donovan and Rudy because when we go back to the beginning of the season, we talked about who has a chance to improve in the Western Conference. And my point was Phoenix and Utah have players that can improve, and the Jazz are in fact doing that. Today's show, I'm very confused. Is today's Monday show or is Monday's show is always brought to you by Murdoch Chevy, but I didn't do a Monday show. So then is today Monday Murdoch? All right. Today's show is brought to you by Murdoch Chevy, located at Woods Cross, also located in Logan. If you want to stop by this time of year, Suburbans, Tahoes, Equinoxes is the SUV lineup. The Chevy trucks are the Silverado and the Colorado. And if you want to stop by, feel free to email me first. We'll set you up with a meeting. A lot of great things going on right there. $1,500 off the 2022 Silverado right now. Also, the Colorado truck is the smaller, less expensive, less bells and whistles truck. The Silverado's like sitting in a lazy boy chair, just cruising down the road. It's the most incredible thing ever. I'll check it out at Murdoch Chevy, located in Woods Cross, also in Logan. Feel free to stop by and visit either of those two locations. Today's show is brought to you by DirecTV. Does this sound familiar? You've got one device that lets you catch the games live, another that lets you stream your favorite shows. You're watching sports highlights on your phone. You've got your neighbor's best friend's login for all the good stuff. Well, I'll tell you what, it's time to make it easier. It's called DirecTV Stream. Brings your live TV on-demand favorites together like never before so you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. That means no more juggling remotes, no more need to buy another device, no more clutter. Maybe in our house, it will actually get our system to work. It's DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directtv.com. That's directtv.com. Compatible device required. Content varies by package. Excuse me. Hey, only one cough in 13 minutes. That's record-setting the way the last few days have gone. Bunch of people in the chat room. A lot of different questions. A lot of hellos from various places. I do want to review. Mike Snar says, heard at the Wizards game, assistant coach turns to Zach in the third quarter as Don gets on. Zach Guthrie would be the Wizards assistant coach and says, who should we put on Mitchell? Denny Advada? They had no answers. No, they did not. Their defense has really fallen apart. They got hammered last night, didn't they? Washington, it's almost as though the game after someone plays the Jazz, we break them a little bit. Didn't they get hammered last night? Yeah, Denver. Oh, well, I guess Jokic got ejected and then Washington came back. Something's not right with Bradley Beal, by the way. He'd have 10 assists, but he's just not right. Like he's off balance. He doesn't look quite right. Something's not right there. Jokic is insane. 31 minutes. 28 points, 19 rebounds, 9 assists last night. There are like 5 things in the NBA right now that are just breaking the game. Jokic, Durant, Steph Curry, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and the Jazz offense. And I don't want to disrespect Phoenix anymore. I mean, they lost last night, so we're now 2 games behind Phoenix. I don't know how Golden State won that game. Indiana that is a mixed match of talent. Indiana had that game won last night. And you kind of knew they weren't going to because they're Indiana, but they were up 100-95 with 133 left. Somehow let Steph get free for a three. Then Steph lays it up. It's tied. Then Brogdon tries a ridiculous shot because he can't do anything but go right and doesn't pass for a point guard. Sorry, I'm just frustrated. And then Curry misses. Then they don't get the offensive rebound. It was just like brutal. It's the difference between a team that wins a lot and a team that doesn't. That was a classic example of that last night. And then Dallas blows out Charlotte without Luka because that makes now Charlotte's lost half their team. This is getting funky now with the trying to figure out who's what with all the COVID stuff because these teams are just depleted, and now we're into this portion of the season where teams playing without players for rest and various things start to have a massive impact. That Clippers Phoenix game last night, I was so excited to watch it, and then no Devin Booker, no DeAndre Ayton, no Paul George, no Nicholas Batum, kind of lost its zest. No Serge Ibaka. We'll see how the Clippers are Wednesday and what they have available for us for that one. I did want to just kind of run through because I think it's really fascinating. So Boston came out and switches more than anything else in the league. And we just ran through it that the Jazz offensive rating in those games was, superhuman. They're superhuman in all these games. So Boston switches everything. And we had our second best offensive game of the year with a 137. Then Cleveland's just tough. Cleveland's super long. It's stereotypical. They're not doing anything particularly unique defensively. They just always have multiple rim defenders. And so, you get by one guy and then the next guy's there. They're the third best defense in the league. They're the fourth best against the shot. They're not denying a huge amount of shots at the rim with their length, but when you do get there, you don't finish. It's almost as though, I don't think this is the case. It's almost as though I think they just don't quite have the defensive guards and wings that they want to have. It's almost as though they're willing to let you get to the rim because you can get to the rim against them at a really high rate, 26 in the league. You just can't finish when you get there. But still not finishing at the rim is 58%. So, and then they don't allow you to shoot threes. So the second best team in the league at denying threes. Here's the thing to realize on that. So the Jazz against Cleveland had an offensive rating of a 116.0. I mentioned this earlier. 116.0 would lead the league offensively. We did it every game. So against the third best team in the league, we had an offense that was 116.0, which is the best in the league. It's 11.4 points above the average that Cleveland allows. 11.4. I'll bet it's one of the worst defensive nights Cleveland's had all year. When you compare us to league average offensively right now, we're 9 points above average. 9.7, actually. So we just keep getting, even against Cleveland, which is our one game where we were relatively human, only because they're great. Otherwise, we were brilliant. Then you played Minnesota trapping. It was a joke. Ron and I watched that on film. We're like, we're going to annihilate this team. Did that. And then we had the joke afterwards. Then you played Philly, who's like pure drop and shift. So what I mean by that, they play Embiid to drop, but then they also shift to hit the roller. So they're really taking away your pick and roll game. So that's a different defense than we had a 127.1. We killed them. And then we played Washington, who's actually even different than that. Washington is drop and hold. So what Washington does defensively is they don't let you shoot threes. Washington has the best defense in the league on denying three-point shots. They only allow 30.7. Next closest is 32.3. That's their game. So they're dropping Gafford or Harrell, who's terrible defensively, and they're hugging. Like, we didn't get a corner three the whole night until Boyan took a shot late in the fourth. There wasn't a single three from the corner. So then Hassan Whiteside and Rudy Gobert just dominated the middle of the lane. And even Philadelphia, who dropped and shifted and then stopped shifting a little bit, then Rudy Gobert and Hassan Whiteside dominated. So it's pretty interesting that every single defense that we've seen, the Jazz have had an offense of answer for it. What's most interesting to me about that is, so when do we get stuck? We get stuck when we play, the Clipper team we played last year in the playoffs is like everyone's 6'8", 220 and switching at elite level. That might be when we get stuck. We'll see. The other thing that's going on here is that Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell are way better than they used to be. They really are. Rudy is continuing to evolve defensively. Offensively, he is showing more versatility. He's staying more patient. He's getting less frustrated when he doesn't get shots. His shots are actually down a shot a game from a year ago, which it's got to be frustrating to him. His free throws are up, though, 1 a game. He's actually making 68%. His rebounding is relentless. And he's impacting about 20 shots a game recently. And teams' number one game plan every single game is to move him out of the middle, make it so that you can't he has no impact. And 100% abs keep him from having an impact on plays, and then he just dominates every play there is. It's just incredible. And Donovan is considerably better. Donovan's reads, Donovan's shot selection, and Donovan hasn't clicked in yet. Well, he's clicked in now, but he's clicked in now. Like, okay, his season numbers have not clicked in, but he has certainly clicked in. What his last 6 games? His last 6 games are absurd. 31 points a game, 54% from the field, 44% from 3, 92% from the free throw line, 5 assists, 2 rebounds. Crazy. 54% from the field as a 6'1" guard. You actually back it up to New Orleans, include the 7-game win streak. He drops under 30 points a game, but he stays at the 54-45. 54-45. I mean, we were waiting for his shooting to come back around. It's coming back around. He is, but it's more than that. It's his reads, it's his control, it's his understanding. There's 2 plays in the trip that jumped out to me. One of which was, now I got to remember what game it was. Well, it doesn't matter. So whoever it was playing a certain style of defense all night. Probably might have been Cleveland. And all of a sudden trapped Donovan. And Donovan retreats out of the trap, gets set, signals a bunch of people to go places. Royce had recognized immediately what was going on. Royce had immediately gone and flashed to the middle. If we trap Donovan, Donovan wants to take them back to the end line, bring 2 to him, hit Royce in the middle of the floor, and then Royce conducts out of the middle of the floor. Better than Rudy. And Royce is usually the one who they're doubling off of. So the hit comes off Royce, so then Royce goes to the middle of the floor. Donovan hits him. Now we're playing 4-on-3 with Royce conducting. Royce is playing Draymond Green at that point. So all of a sudden, someone trapped Donovan. And Donovan retreats out, got out of the trap, then initiated again to get back into the trap, at which point Royce went. Royce went the first time. Donovan just didn't have the passing lane. Jazz hit him, rotate, wide open 3. I actually don't think we made it. But it was like the speed by which they recognized what had just happened and what they were doing was pretty incredible. The other thing that's worth watching, by the way, is our first play every night. Quinn scripts our first play every night based on what he knows the defense can do, and our first plays every night are incredible. It's really a tribute to the coaching staff and how well they prepare these guys. It's amazing. I thought we discovered something on Friday out of nowhere, unintentionally. I've spent a bunch of time researching it, and I want to dig into it a little bit more with you, if I may. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Built Bar. I had a new flavor. It's out. The gingerbread is good. Gingerbread flavor is out today. Locke 15 gets you 15% off. There's actually 10% off on gingerbread. I don't know if it goes on top of it. Our COO, Carl Weinstein of the company, loves the caramel almond delight. He was eating it yesterday. Eggnog was released earlier this week. Caramel macchiato released earlier this week. Coconut brownie chunk is still there. It's so good. Built Bars. The puffs are surprisingly good. They just keep amazing me with what they do with their flavors and how good they are. 130 calories, 2.5 fat grams, 4 net carbs, 4 sugars, 17 grams of protein. It's all at Built.com. Promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off. Have the NBA odds changed at all? By the way, Chiefs are a 4-point favorite against the Chargers next week on that Thursday night game. Too bad that game's on Thursday. Thursday games are never very good. That's a good game. Rams made their statement last night, didn't they? All right, NBA futures at betonline.ag. Brooklyn plus 275, Warriors plus 450, Bucks plus 800, Suns plus 900, Jazz plus 950, Lakers plus 1,000. Those are their main contenders, huh? Championship futures, Brooklyn plus 165, Bucks plus 350, Miami plus 500. Over in the West, Warriors plus 175, Suns plus 475, Jazz plus 475, Lakers plus 550, Clippers plus 1,000. I'm still really scared of the Clippers. Just want to let everyone know. Let's look at some of the questions that have come in. Donovan's taking another step forward. So is Gobert. It helps that Whiteside comes in as the best backup Rudy's had. No disrespect. Favors wasn't very good last year. You don't have to disrespect him. He just wasn't very good. Defense wins championships. Is that still true? I don't actually know that that's actually ever been true. So no, I think offenses win championships. If defense won championships, we would have won a championship by now. Rudy Gobert's length is making a huge impact. Yes, that is true. Rudy Gay has made a huge impact. We really haven't lost a game since Rudy Gay started playing. We lost the 2 fluke games where the reviews went funky. We didn't play well in either of those games, so it's on us. But Rudy Gay's been really good. Do you think Rudy Gay has an impact on Bojan's defensive effort? Bogey seems to have been much more locked in defensively than ever before. So I'm going to go no there only because of who Bogey is. This is like the most stoic, straight shooting, non-seemingly emotional, professional, has his own way about things, unbothered by other people, that is out there. Hey, Tim Roy stopped by. That is Tim. This is the radio voice of the Golden State Warriors right here. Should have had some hot takes if the Warriors weren't that good. Hey, by the way, Tim, you shouldn't have won last night. That was a joke. Good teams win that game, but man, Indiana had to try to lose that. That was ridiculous. Yes, I was rooting against you. I want the 1 seed. Of course I want the 1 seed. All right. So we did points gained on Friday. And I always do it the same way. I run the spreadsheets, but I don't look at the numbers before we do the show. And so that you get an honest reaction of me when we do the show. And all of a sudden, for the first time ever in points gained, like who the top players in the league were didn't make sense offensively. Jared Allen is the number 1 most positive, impactful player, then Nikola Jokic, then Rudy Gobert, then Kevin Durant, then Rashawn Holmes, then Montrezl Harrell, and Karl Anthony, and Steph, then Domantas Sabonis, then John Collins, and Harrison Barnes, and Zubac, and Robert Williams. Like my numbers are crap now. So kind of bummed about this, as I be honest, because it always, one of the key things on numbers is it has to pass the eyeball test. Well, that fails the eyeball test. But it tells you something about what's going on in the league. And what it tells you that's going on in the league is that the lack of rim shots, which is being reduced because of defenses year in and year out, and the increase and the decrease in free throws, the combination of those 2 things has suddenly made the big man at the rim more valuable than he's ever been, and actually maybe the most valuable thing in the league right now. Okay, let me walk you through some of this. This year, there's 32% of the shots are being taken at the rim. 32. Last year, that number was 33. Let's go 3 years ago. Let's go to 1920, the last kind of real season before that. 35. Go to 18-19. 36. Go to 17-18. That drops to 35. So the peak was 36% of all shots were taken at the rim. And I always like to look at kind of 10 years back, 5 years back to see trends because there's always 1 year outliers that happen. But 36 was the number in 2012, 13, which was 10 years ago. And then 17, 18 was the year where it slipped back to 35, 34.5. And 18, 19, 4 years ago, we were at our peak at about 36. So we've gone from 36% of shots every night at the rim to 32%. That's a big difference. I mean, it's not quite 4 shots a night, but if we were getting, let's play the game here for a second. On average, we can just start playing. We can do this together. You get 85 shots a night. And if you were getting 36 shots a night, 36% at the rim, you were getting 30 shots a night at the rim. And now you're getting 27. So there's 3 less shots at the rim. Suddenly that shot, Rudy Gobert getting 1 less shot at the rim is not surprising. But his shots at the rim are becoming even more important. Hassan Whiteside's are actually more important. That's the first trend. And so suddenly those players that are special and unique in Jared Allen, in Nikola Jokic, and Rudy Gobert, and Rashawn Holmes was a little floater, Montrezl Harrell, Karl Anthony Towns, probably more as a guard, Sabonis, who can actually play around the rim, Zubac, dunk follow, Robert Williams, dunk follow, get rim shots, become more important than they've ever been before. Part 2 is that free throws are way down. Free throw rate for 100 field goal attempts this year is 17.8. Last year was 19.2. 1920 was 20.2. I know this is boring because I'm doing it with you live, but we're doing it together. So we are at 20.2. We're now at 17. We're now taking 3 less free throw trips per 100 possessions too. So 3 less rim shots, 3 less free throws. The free throws are meaning that the guards, Steph, Durant, ball handlers are a little less efficient than they once were because they're not getting the free throw line. Rudy Gobert is taking 24% of his possessions at the free throw line because he gets fouled a lot. Probably about what Rudy Gobert was last year, too. Rudy Gobert last year was at 19% of his possessions at the free throw line. So whereas Steph Curry was going to the free throw line 9.9 times on his possessions last year, is down to 7.7 this year, Rudy Gobert is actually up. And so these players have become more valuable than ever before. Durant was at 12.7. He's now at 11.8 of his possessions are at free throw line. So and you start to look at the teams that are playing better than expected, they all have this big. So this is pretty interesting. Good little discovery on our part Friday. Keep an eye on it. I think it actually might be the story of the season, and we don't totally realize it, but we just stumbled into it. All right, thanks for back at it. Be back with you tomorrow. We'll get ready for the clips. Hope you're doing great. Oh, Tim Roy, we had a plane issue. We are flying to New York right now. Oh, brutal. Hey, you know what? We all love being back on the road, but I will admit that walking in the hotel at 3:30 in the morning in Philadelphia the other day, I forgot what it was like. I should have actually, there's a mechanism where I could have invited Tim Roy into the show. All right. Well, Tim and I will do a show before the Jazz Warriors. We play January 1st, right? We also play the 31st on a back-to-back. I don't know how we'll do that. All right. We'll figure it out. Tim's the best. You guys should listen to Warriors Radio. Let me tell you this. If you listen to Warriors Radio, you'll hear a lot of features that you hear on Jazz Radio because we've stolen most of their stuff.